What up, simps? I thought I would do a little video here just going over my overall thoughts on Starfield because I just beat it the other day. My intention was not to blow through it as fast as I did, but I kinda... Well, I'll get into it a little bit, but I beat the main quest, and I began New Game Plus, but I thought I would come back to Starfield for my second run through a little bit later in time, maybe like after some mods have like come out and everything. But getting everything out of the way, overall thoughts are pretty positive. I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Starfield for the most part. It works more as an experience and less so as a game, I think. Bethesda's first foray into space was my first real deal with their games since Fallout 3. I only played Fallout 3 for about 2 months solid. It was the first open world game that I enjoyed, and I think it, for better or worse, sort of skewed the way that I played open world games, and potentially is partially why I didn't really enjoy open world games again until Breath of the Wild came out. As a non-Bethesda fan, I can't deny, though, that the first 30 hours or so was magical. The vibes of the game were, and still are, honestly off the charts. I love space and sci-fi, so that may not be that surprising. First things first, right out of the gate, I don't understand why I heard so many people that the first, several hours of the game were like a slog. I did the whole initial tutorial bit, and then as soon as I got to New Atlantis, I do a couple dialogue things. I kind of get a vibe for what's going on around me, and then as soon as Sarah Morgan's hey, we should go do something, and then I see that she's gonna be my companion for however long, I said nope and just left and went and did stuff. I went to go find side quests and didn't start the main quest at all until I had visited roughly about 20 planets, joined the Crimson Fleet, and dealt with countless side quests and activities. I had the most fun in my entire experience with the Crimson Fleet faction quest. I was... Towards the end of that faction quest, I was actually just screaming as I docked to the UC fleet ship. The hype levels were off the charts. A lot of the side quests I thought were really enjoyable, and just the fact that, for instance, like I said, I don't have that much experience with Bethesda games, and I don't remember having something quite like this in Fallout 3, but to put things into perspective, one of the first things I did after I left New Atlantis was I landed on a planet, I can't remember which, and there's this little town, and this police officer is I just walked by a random police officer, and he tells me, hey, keep an eye out, couriers have gone missing. And that single happenstance interaction with the random police officer kicked off a whole series of events where I have to do corporate espionage. It's like a murder mystery. And then at the end of it, I become a pirate. And not all of those were linked together, but the fact that that one little thing just kicked off that whole series of events, I mean, that's my story now, you know what I mean? And I think in that sense, Starfield is unparalleled. It's crazy how much you can get sidetracked on something that 1,000 people will potentially never see. I took notes on one thing that on one side quest that I decided to take, because at this point in time I had gone off so many weird tangents, and I was I want to just track the series of events that this one side quest kind of leads me down. And it wasn't the most insane thing that I encountered, but it was still worth noting, because there was some neat things that happened. So on the Crimson Fleet ship, I heard that a bartender had been treating people like shit. So I go and talk to him, and he asked me to find some dude named Clay, and he wants his wife's ring, and she's presumed dead. So I had to like light jump to this planet that was being marked, but I didn't have enough fuel to get there, so I had to make a pit stop somewhere. But on that pit stop, I found a ship that's being attacked. After I killed the attackers, there's this mysterious chatter on like on the airwaves. So I say, what the fuck are these guys doing? And I dock their ship, and there's two guys standing above like a dead woman, and a computer is behind them. And they are telling me that there is a sentient AI that is the reason that this woman is dead, and they asked me to take care of the AI. And because I had done the corporate espionage, I didn't finish that faction quest, but the fact that I had done as much as I had done up until that point, it allowed me the option to essentially put a what's the word? Not a motherboard. A computer chip, let's just say a computer chip, in this AI that would just wipe its memory and just reset it. But I instead talked to this AI, found out what it wanted, what it was like, and it was a sentient AI, and I let it live. But in the process, it asked me to instead kill the two guys that were trying to get me to kill it. But because I had a really high persuasion, I was able to persuade not only the AI, but also the two people to leave everybody alone. And then I went and talked to the AI again, and it asked me how to live a good life, and I told it to do what it wanted to do, but that question I posed to it caused it to like have a sequencing error, and it like short-circuited and broke. But when I brought the dudes back onto the ship, the computer fixed itself, and it told me we'll meet again someday, and it shot off into space. And then I bring the two guys back to where they wanted me to take them, and I immediately run into this woman that is telling me that she's got a bounty on her for something that she didn't do. So I go in and convince this guy that is clearly the bounty hunter to leave her alone. And then I go back to find the ring. I land on the planet where the ring is. I find the mercs, kill the mercs, kill Clay, and find the ring. Alongside the ring is a note from Clay describing about how he was cowardly and he caused this woman to die. And then I fly back and give the ring back to the bartender, and that was that side quest. Like I said, that one wasn't the most crazy kind of like sequence of events that I uncovered, but the fact that I found a sentient AI and had to convince it to not kill people was pretty neat. And the game is just full of stuff like that. All of the combat in the game I thought was really good. It's a little bit snappier than Fallout 4. It's been a minute since I played Fallout 76. I played Fallout 76 for about like 3 weeks, pretty hard. And then that was like a year and a half ago. I never touched it again. So I'm going off of Fallout 76, and I remember Fallout 76 being a little looser than Starfield. So I think that Starfield's combat in general is an improvement over what Bethesda has done before. And the space combat, once you get a better ship, is actually really fun. I didn't get a better ship for a long while. So I genuinely thought that the space... I just kept dying over and over and over again. It was so frustrating at a point that I essentially... For a minute, whenever space combat came up, I turned the game to very easy. But once I got the Mantis ship, that had a significantly stronger lasers and missiles and stuff, and better fuel, and just an overall better ship, I was able to hold my own a lot better. But even still, a lot of space encounters kind of felt like it was... I think anything beyond a 3-on-1, you almost had no hope of surviving. Because whatever ship you focused on, the other ones would always kind of just be on your ass at all times, and you would just get pummeled, and you would explode in about like 10 seconds. But if it was 3-on-1 or less, it felt tense, it felt enjoyable, and I felt every space encounter like that, I walked away with a big sigh of relief, and that I felt like I accomplished something, and that I had to fight to succeed in that encounter. And I think that's exactly what they were going for, and I think that they succeeded in that sense. The digipick, the lockpicking, is single-handedly my favorite part of the game. It's the best lockpick mechanic I've ever seen in any video game. Every single time, even when the game came around towards the later half of my experience with it, and I was kind of understanding that the items behind a master lock could be as good as a lock or items behind a novice lockpick, which is a terrible way to terrible way to design a reward system. I still wanted to do them because the lock picking is just so good. The first half of my time with Starfield, however, when I still wasn't aware that you could find a level 1 pistol behind a fucking master lock, when I didn't realize that was a thing, I would sit down and I would just have the biggest smile on my face the entire time of like counting nodes, seeing which nodes fit where. And as you progress the lockpick, you can kind of breeze through easier difficulties. And like my first advanced lockpick took me, and I'm not shitting you, 20 minutes. But by the end of the game, I could do a master lock in about 2. Like it's an actual like skill that you learn, and you feel your brain throbbing, and like it's a muscle that you hone with this lockpick mechanic. It's so good. You could make a puzzle game exclusively based on this lockpicking mechanic. It's that good. It's unreal. But all that being said, around the 30-hour mark was when I kind of stopped. Around the 30-hour mark was kind of where the honeymoon phase, I guess you could say, kind of like started to phase out a little bit. And part of it has to do with exploration. And it's not the fact that the way that I don't mind the way that they incorporated space travel. Specifically because it's space. It's enormous. You would be spending hours doing nothing, and after one time of doing that, you would only ever want to fast travel anyway. The funny thing is, though, is that Starfield somehow both bloats and cuts the fat out of what I understand to be a Bethesda game. It expands and limits the exploration in a bizarre way. And what I mean by that is that, like, so in a Bethesda game, in most open world games, you're just wandering along and you're like, I'm gonna go that way. And you might see something off in the distance, and you have to spend your time walking to this thing with potentially nothing happening. And you're just walking and you're walking and you're walking and you're walking and you're walking, and then you get there. What Starfield does, which is weird, is that you can just fast travel literally anywhere in the universe, but then you still have to walk. You know what I mean? It's weird. Like, anywhere that you want to go, you can just go there instantly. But then once you're there, you have to still then do the walking. And the biggest problem is, yeah, you can go anywhere you want, but so many of the planets have the same copy-pasted things on their surface. And after a while of finding yet another abandoned factory that only to be met by the Crimson Fleet, who I personally refused to kill because I was a Crimson Fleet pirate and I didn't want to ruin my reputation with the faction, I stopped even trying to explore basically at all. And I want to say that I hear a lot of people saying, like, put cars or rovers in Starfield, that will make the problem go away. And yes, it would, but Todd Howard has said that he wants the pace of the game to be thrown off by getting a vehicle, the pacing of exploration while on a planet. And I think that a good compromise, if he's dead set on not putting vehicles in this game, a very simple compromise is, because it appears that, like, any surface of a random planet that you just land on, it appears to be, like, randomly generated. I think a very simple solution is just bring everything a little bit closer, or have your ship naturally land, like, on a location that it spawned. So you at least land, you're there already, and then you go out and explore. I think either one of those is a significantly fair compromise. But then once you're there, what I tried to do from the get-go was specifically side quests, but when you're exploring, trying to find like fun and interesting things, and you're only ever finding essentially blank nothing, I sort of stopped trying to find the side quests. It really killed all the enjoyment of the main component of what I expect and note of what a Bethesda game to be. Especially because like I heard that like, I don't know, 90% of the planets didn't have life on them. And that didn't bother me because I kind of figured that there would still be fun things to do there. And this leads to another neat thing, is that there are so many systems in this game. What's great about that, that's normally potentially a very bad thing, because so many systems more than likely means a lot of them aren't that fleshed out. But practically every single component in this game is pretty fleshed out. You have crafting, shipbuilding, combat, exploration, space combat, lockpicking, all that stuff. And what's great in Starfield is that any component of the game that you don't like, you can just flat out ignore. And you don't feel like you're missing out on anything. All the components of the game that you decide to focus on, all of those are fleshed out enough that you don't feel like you're being cheated, or that the game is incentivizing you to do something that you don't want to do, like Fallout 4 and its base building, which is back in this, but I never once even considered building an outpost anywhere. And my experience, for the most part, practically wasn't hampered even a little bit. I don't think I crafted once. I didn't build a ship. All I did was build up my character. I roleplayed essentially a space pirate, bounty hunter, Boba Fett type character. I did bounties, all that stuff, and I had a great time. I think that's commendable, because a game of this size and scope, to be able to literally pick and choose what you want to do in the game and have it all feel like that's the game that was meant for you, or that's the game that Starfield decides to show itself to you as, is pretty fucking impressive. That being said, though, the UI is unforgivable. I remember hearing a bunch of people talking about how a lot of the game was essentially staring at menus. And personally, as someone that loves Eurotrash and board games, I was actually kind of excited to spend a lot of time in menus. And if the UI was not the worst thing I've ever seen, I wouldn't mind it at all. But just navigating these menus is a headache. I didn't mind the menus for navigation. That was all pretty straightforward, and it was like, you know, good enough. But the UI for like your inventory specifically, or bartering or trading or any of that stuff, it's just the worst. Basically the day I beat Starfield, I started New Vegas, because I have never sat down and played all of that. It baffled me, because navigating the UI for trading in New Vegas it's better than Starfield. It's not better by much, but it's better than Starfield's UI, and that is insane to me. I'm trying to think of other things that I really didn't like. I think the things that really killed the honeymoon phase for me is just the lack of motivation at some point, for me at least, to just go out and explore. I guess I should go into my thoughts on the story. As I've said before, I'm not a real big Bethesda buff, so I don't really have much to compare to. The only thing I have to go off of is the general consensus from Bethesda fans that the main story, or the main quest, is never very good. And comparing Starfield's story to the illusion that their stories are never very good, I would say that the main campaign, the main quest for Starfield is decent. I like what they're going for, I like what they're toying with. They just don't do too much unique with it. There is, without spoiling anything, there is a mechanic at the very end of the main quest that is just awesome. That I could definitely see being like utilized a lot more in upcoming DLC that we all know is coming. I'm actually super stoked for Starfield DLC. Arguably more than mods, because mods are going to take a hot minute to get like really good. DLC, I think right off the bat, will fix and improve a lot of good things. And it probably won't take as long as we think it will. But those are my overall thoughts on Starfield. If you had a gun to my head and told me to give it like a numerical rating, it would be pretty hard for me to decide where I wanted to put it. If I'm being as objective as possible, probably a 7.5. If I'm being fair, probably an 8. But if I'm being true to just what I felt through playing the game, through all of its ups and downs, probably an 8.5. Let's just say an 8, though. Really enjoyed Starfield. Would it be a contender, though, for Game of the Year? I think of all the games I've played so far this year, it's up there, but I don't think that this is even in the top 5, for what it's worth. I will say this, though. Playing Starfield made me realize I may have been playing Bethesda games wrong, so it's got that going for it. Thanks for watching. Love your face. Love your show.